y'all, welcome back to my channel. I'm Danielle and I'm the owner of Damn Fancy Creations and the Drunk Flamingo Glitter. Today's tutorial is the edited version of the pin wrap and hot glue drip that I did in the Drunk Flamingo about a month ago. This way, if you missed the live, you can easily come back to this tutorial. It is a quicker version of the live that we did. It's a little bit sped up. That way you can go through the whole thing really quick and see all of the steps we did in the live. For today's tutorial, I am going to be showing you guys how to use my 3D Floral Skull pin wraps, adding hot glue drips, pinstripes, and of course, glitter. So everything you see here will be covered in today's tutorial, but if you guys have questions, you can ask down below in the comment section or head over to the Drunk Flamingo Glitter group and ask underneath the live. Don't forget to check out the description where I list everything you will need to recreate these pins, as well as discount codes from my favorite suppliers. But for now, we're going to go ahead and get started on this tutorial, and I hope you guys enjoy. Alright y'all, so here are the pin wraps we're going to be using today. These are my 3D floral wraps. I am loving all of the skulls and florals. I went ahead and cut out my 4 wraps that I'm going to be using, and we are going to be using the metal pins. A couple different places offer these. I believe these are from Artistry. I think CCDIY also sells them. So they are metal pins. I am basically just taking everything apart. Don't worry, I will show you guys how to put them back together at the end. These are a little bit skinnier, smaller circumference than the gel pins that my tumbler wraps are typically designed for, but that's totally fine. We can trim them down a little bit, which is what I am about to do. So right now I am just wrapping this pin wrap around the metal barrel just to see what the circumference is of these pins. And I'm just going to take a marker and mark a dot where I need to cut it. So I'm just using this pen. We're just going to mark where the vinyl meets up. So I know that I need to trim that part off. And then I'm also going to hold this as tight as I can, and then I'm going to mark the bottom so I know the height of these pins. So you guys can obviously tell that I was also on a live when I was doing this tutorial. So now we're going to draw a straight line and we're going to cut the excess off. And I'm just going to use my Cami Page Boutique cup cradle to draw my straight line. So I'm just lining this up with the top of the cup cradle so I know that it is straight. I had some dried culture sculpt on my cup cradle, I believe. And then we're drawing a straight line across the bottom. So now I'm just going to cut this line. So that way, this is going to be our new template. And you will only need to trim it if you have a smaller barrel pins than the Inkjoy. The Inkjoys are a little bit fatter. So now I'm going to go and trace this template onto all of the other little pin wraps that I have so that they're all the same size. And then I'm going to make a triangle out of one of them. And of course, I am first testing to make sure that everything lines up correctly. I don't want to cut out all 4 of them and then it not be the correct size. So for the first template, I'm actually going to make a triangle. I'm just deciding which pattern I'm going to use. So to make the triangle, I'm going to lay my template down. So I already know that this is the height. And I'm going to put dots where the height is. So we already know what the circumference is. So we're just going to draw a line from the top of this rectangle to that little dot. So now we have a little triangle. So this is kind of like the right angled tumbler. I did do a live in the Drunk Flamingo on that where I did 2 right angles that turned out really fun. And for the others, I am just measuring out the same template. So I'm just putting a dot of all the corners and then I am connecting those dots and we're going to trim them just like we did the first rectangle. So right now I'm just cutting out my triangle and then I decided, oh, well, I can get 2 triangles out of this. So I just trimmed this a little bit, and this one ended up being more of a V-split because of how I trimmed it, but it actually turned out really cool. I like it a lot. And the others are just going to be regular rectangles. Believe it or not, this is the first time I've actually used my pin wraps on pins. I have used vinyl for pins before, but I would typically just trim my vinyl. I also have sample packs. So I have like a Western sample pack and I have like a spring honeybee sample pack that is 6-inch squares of vinyl. So I have used that a lot for pin wraps, but never my actual pin wraps. So I decided it was time to get on that. So basically what I'm doing is the same thing I would if I'm wrapping a tumbler. I'm pulling back the vinyl a little bit, trimming off the backing so we can use this as a hinge. And since the pins are so small, I did not draw a straight line on them. Pins are something that are super easy to readjust if you need to and not like a 12-inch sheet of vinyl. So I'm just getting them all on there, wrapping that vinyl around, making sure that everything is going to line up. And I decided to go ahead and put all of the vinyl on all of the pins first. And then I will go back and actually remove the backing. And we are going to do the same thing with the triangle pieces. We're just trimming a little bit of that off, lining it up straight. And for the second triangle piece, because the skulls are the opposite direction, we are going to apply this around the top. And for some reason, this one was just driving me crazy. I don't know why. I could not get it lined up. And then I think I cut it wrong because I was trying to line it up with the top of the pin. And I was also on a live, so I was probably distracted and cut this incorrectly. And it ended up being more of a V-split than a right angle, which I was fine with. I thought it ended up looking really cool. and I will probably do more V-splits in the future. So now that we have all of our vinyl on there, we are just going to use our fingers and just smooth the vinyl down as we remove the backing. Wrap it all around. Make sure everything lines up well. And we're going to do the same thing for all of these pins. So now that all of our vinyl is on, I am going to go ahead and apply our glue drips. But before we do that, I am going to use my heat gun just to warm up this vinyl a little bit. That way it will help the vinyl adhere better to the pins. It will help it lay down flatter. You can also see air bubbles a lot better, so if you need to pop some air bubbles, you can definitely do that as well. And I typically do this on a medium setting. You don't want it too hot or it will make the vinyl bubble and wrinkle, but you just want it warm enough to heat that adhesive a little bit and make that vinyl a little bit more flexible. So I'm basically just heating it and rolling the pin between my fingers. So this is the glue gun, or one of them that we're going to be using. I will link this down below. I do really like this. I've used this glue gun several times since this live, and I do like it a lot better than the smaller one. Both of these are battery operated. The larger one heats the glue up a lot better, so you get really good drips. That glue is really, really hot coming out of the glue gun. So if you're in the market for a new glue gun, I definitely suggest that one. So right now, I always just use straws to put my pins on. The Eekjoy gel pens fit perfectly on these plastic straws that come with my tumblers. I've used these same straws for years, and I just use a noodle and I stick those straws down in the noodle. I typically just use a noodle because I personally like to use the sun to cure my UV resin. So I just put my pins on this noodle contraption that I made and just set them outside on my fence post, and it cures within minutes. But for the purpose of this live, we're going to be using a UV light. And if your pins don't fit, if your straws are a little bit too small, which they were for these metal pins, I just took some striping tape, I'm sure any tape would work, and wrapped it around the base. That way when you put your pins on there, they're nice and snug. So we're going to be using these colored glue sticks. Make sure when you order, you're ordering the correct size. I learned the hard way that there are different sizes of glue sticks. I don't know why I never knew this before. I guess because I always used mini glue sticks. I never used regular size glue sticks. So make sure if you have a full-size glue gun, you are ordering full-size glue sticks, but they do come in multiple colors as well. I will link everything down below so you guys can find everything super easy. So I'm just going ahead and inserting some of the colors that I'm going to use. I am taping off the top of my pin so that when I add the hot glue drip, I can remove that tape and we have a nice, smooth, clean line. And I am going to start the glue drip a little bit further down from the top, so that way when I go to apply my UV resin, I can cover the glue drip completely without going over the top of the pin, if that makes sense. And if you use different colors, you will see I have a little like waste container here. So your colors, you may have a little bit of the same color in your glue gun when you first start out. So I just usually do 2 to 3 pumps and the old color is gone and the new color is present. So I am just going to start pumping this glue onto the pin. And the hotter the glue is, the further it will fall. This one was not super hot. I usually let the glue sit in there for about 5 minutes before I actually start using it. But I wanted this one to be a little bit smaller than the others, like a little baby drip. And I'm using my torch just to heat it up a little bit. This also helps get rid of any like glue stringies. It will also help smooth out the top. And now that that one is done, we're just going to set it on our little makeshift stand. So for this one, I couldn't decide. I don't know what I was going to do with it. I think I decided not to do a drip on that one. And I did a side drip on this one, and I ended up removing it. I wasn't crazy about it. But if you guys want to see, this is what it would look like. So I just put striping tape right along the edge of that pin and then applied that glue right over that striping tape, but it didn't really drip how I wanted it to. I think that I should have just let this glue heat up a little bit more or use the larger heat gun because it heats glue up 10 times better. So I wasn't really crazy about this one, so y'all can just ignore this one. It could be cool. I could make it look better. So I am removing the glue stick that we did not use. And we will switch colors. So for this one, I tried to go with colors that would go with both of the patterns that I had. That way I wasn't wasting a whole glue stick. And glue drips are very similar to epoxy drips. So if you just pump like 2 big squirts, then that glue is going to fall down the cup. If you just do a little tiny pump, it's not going to fall down the cup. So it's kind of like adding a bead of epoxy to an epoxy drip. That little bead of epoxy is going to fall down the cup further, just like a larger amount of hot glue is going to fall down the pin or the cup further. So I wanted to start this one a little bit further down so you can see I'm making a little bit of a thicker rim. So this one dripped a lot further down the pin, which I really liked. So I'm going ahead and removing that tape, and then I'm going to go ahead and remove these glue sticks. So I don't leave the glue sticks in there. I did need to get my pliers out, so that way we didn't waste a whole glue stick. And a lot of people were asking how much it weighed. So the smaller one was 7 ounces. The big one was about 1.8. It's not, to me, it did not feel heavy when I was using it. So now we're going to go in and apply our glitter. I'm going to use Artistry's glitter glue. And this is one reason why I love doing drips with hot glue, because they're already dry. There's no waiting. I typically would use fast set for my epoxy drips, but even fast set does take a little bit longer to dry. So now I can go in with my glitter glue, apply it where I want, sprinkle that glitter on, and I don't have to worry about that glitter mixing with the drips. And I just kind of picked colors that I thought would go well with my pins. This one is Harvest Punch. This is kind of like the chunky big sister to Singin' in the Rain. So I went in with chunky first, just to get a good chunky base, and then I took my tea strainer and sprinkled on the fine glitter that is in this mix to fill in any blank space and to kind of let that glitter fall up the pin a little bit. And then I take it off of my little straw, get any glitter off that's around the rim, and then put it back on there. So that seems simple enough. So we are going to do that for the other pins. So I really thought this burnt orange would go good with this pin. I think this is Wild West. This is a burnt orange, but it also has flecks of blue in it. So this would pull from the orange and the little bit of blue that is in this pin wrap. And again, we're just smoothing out that edge. And I will say that I did use Brooks Cami Page Boutique's edging tool for my pins as well. If you guys watch my tutorials, you'll know that I use it for my tumblers. Even after epoxy, just to get a smooth rim, I did the same thing for these pins. I just put it on the smallest spacer, so that way I got a good stainless rim for my pins as well. So that way you know that everything is sealed in. This is another new color. This is Autumn Twilight. This was in August's Flock Box. So again, I just started with the chunky and then used my tea strainer to get those fine pieces to just kind of sprinkle on the pin, as well as fill in any blank spots that may be between the chunky pieces. So next we're going to do the pins that are the right angle and V-split. So those are going to have a little bit more glitter. But we are going to apply the glitter the same way. I'm just going to use glitter glue. I'm going to use a smaller paintbrush. This is Singin' in the Rain, which is the little sister to Harvest Punch. And I'm just using this paintbrush going right along the edge of that vinyl. And this is opaque glitter. It's not translucent, so this stainless base is not going to show through. If you are unsure if your glitter is translucent or opaque, just pour it on a sheet of paper like this scrapbook paper. If you can see the colors through the glitter, then it is translucent. If you cannot see the colors through the glitter, then it is opaque. So that one is done. And now for the last one, we are going to use Water Lily, which is a pretty kind of muted purple, kind of like a pinky purple. And this one still has the hot glue drips on it. I did not like them. So even after I applied my glitter, I ended up just peeling those hot glue drips off. And after we get our pins completed, they're glittered, the vinyl's on there, we are going to seal this. You can either do very, very light coats with a spray sealer like Rust-Oleum 2x, or you can use a liquid sealer like Quick Seal or Quick Coat. I think for these, I actually did use Rust-Oleum. I just did very light coats. You don't want to do too heavy on the spray painted sealers because it can cause the vinyl to wrinkle, and we definitely don't want that. So I'm just brushing everything off right now. They don't look too pretty at the moment. They're still kind of rough. But I know I did show the UV light here. This is the UV light that I use. And y'all screenshot this information if you want it. If you can't screenshot it, don't worry. I am going to link it below so you guys can grab one if you want. It is a little bit more expensive than a typical nail light, but it works a lot better in my opinion. And I love that you just have to like sit it up. So after we seal it with your sealer of choice, we are going to start applying our UV resin. So I'm going to use CCDIY's UV resin. So before I start UV resining my pens, I am just going around the very top rim with my blade and trimming off any hot glue that may be on the top part of my pen. That way when I apply my UV resin, everything is going to be sealed in. So I'm just trimming about a 2mm rim. I was trying to get my camera to focus on what I was doing, but of course it does not want to. It always focuses on what I don't want it to focus on. So this is the light. Again, you can screenshot that info if you want. So I am just going to squirt out a thin line of UV resin. I am just going to cover everything. You do not need this coat to be thick. we just need a thin layer just to cover the glitter and vinyl. I had too much, so I was wiping this off and putting it on another pin. And then I'm going to turn my UV light on. I like this light because it has a little clicker on off switch. So I can still leave it set up and just click it on or off. So I am basically just curing these pins for about 30 seconds each. That way the UV resin just gets tacky, and then I put it back up on my little pin holder, and then I will cure them all for longer. So I'm just applying my thin coat. And I'm applying this around my drips the same way I would always do. I am just applying it and then digging out any excess out from those little crevices the drips form. And I am wiping the epoxy off of the very top, or the resin. I'm wiping the resin off of the very top so that we don't have resin up there. I just figured that that's going to be a spot that's going to be touched often because that's where the clicker is. So if I don't have to put UV resin up there, I don't see a need for it. So here again, curing for maybe 30 seconds just to get that resin to cure enough not to be moving. And I always just use a gloved finger. Sometimes I use a brush. If these pins were just glitter and vinyl, I would probably use a brush, but since we did put drips on here, I would rather just use a gloved finger. That way I can remove epoxy if I need to out of those crevices. So once we have our pins cured, I will do 2 coats and then I will sand it really well. This one I sanded too much because you can see the silver through the glitter, but a trick that I like to do is find a ink color that matches, and you can go back over those silver parts. And I know it looks noticeable now because the pen is super sanded, but it is almost identical to the glitter color. So once this has UV resin on top of it, you won't even be able to tell a difference. You won't be able to see the silver parts or the ink. I have used that trick several different times and it works every time. So now that we have everything UV resined a couple times, the glitter is smooth, we are going to apply our pinstripes. If you guys did not know, I do have a pinstripe file on thedrunkflamingo.com. It has all of my most popular sizes, which is 0.07, 0.05, and 0.03. I like to print out full sheets of pinstripes at a time. That way I have a bunch of them to use. I have a lot of colors and I can layer them if I want to. So I am just going in and following the vinyl. And I'm just trimming the edge here as well. just any excess epoxy, vinyl, glitter. I'm just making sure those edges are smooth. I think this one, the glitter did not match up perfectly to the vinyl. I can't remember. It's so hard to see on such a tiny little pen when I'm so used to tumblers. So now I'm going back and we're just applying another really thin pinstripe. I just wanted to double up on this one, give it a little bit more interest. And I have not have put my gloves on yet, but you guys know how hard gloves are to take off. You cannot flip them right side up, so I just left them on, but it made it a little bit more difficult to apply my pinstripes. So I'm just trimming them off. We're just making this like a V-split. I think this is the one that had the drip going down the side and I didn't like it. So here is what this one looks like. I was really happy with it. So now we're going to do the right angle pinstripe. We're just going to start at the top. And I wanted to do an additional pinstripe on this one as well. So I'm just cutting this at an angle so that when the pinstripes meet up at the top, it's not squared off. It is to a point. And this is the last pinstriping I have recorded. Somebody called me and cut off my video. I hate it when that happens. But I just basically pinstriped these just like I would a regular tumbler. And then I applied 2 more coats of UV resin. And these are what they look like finished. So I'm going to show you guys how we're going to put the pins together. So there are a couple wrong ways you can do this, and there is only one right way you can do this. So for these, this little insert and the clicker actually screw in together. So you have to remember that. So you can't just screw them in and put them in there. It won't go through. You also cannot put them all in this way because they will not fit. So I will show you guys kind of the easiest way that I figured out how to put them back together. If I can get these unstuck now that I was trying to show you guys what not to do. So I put the little white piece in first, and then I put one spring in and then screw the little clicker into the white piece. And then we're going to take the ink barrel and the top part and screw it in like this. So I will show you guys multiple times in case you need to watch them. So we're going to take this little white piece. I don't know what these are called. This is just a white piece with threads. And we're going to insert that at the front of the tube so it comes out the back. Then we're going to insert that spring so that that little white piece is inside the spring. And then we're going to take that clicker and screw it into the white piece. And then the ink barrel and the top part just go in easily. It should be easy, but I had resin on this pen. Of course, that would happen. So I had to take this off. I was trying to get it off with my nail. It was just on the threads on the inside. So I just used my blade. And then it clicks. Perfect. So I'm just checking these, make sure there's no resin in these. So again, we're taking the white part, putting it through, and then putting the spring around the white part, and then screwing that clicker into the threaded white piece. And then we will take our ink barrel and screw that into the tube. So here they all are. So I'm just going to show you guys a video of how they all turned out. And I am in love with how these pens look. I love Halloween. I love skulls and flowers. So I am obsessed with how these pens turned out. Here are some more finished pictures of them. If you guys have these pen wraps and have made pens with them, or if you guys want to try the hot glue drip, please post them in the Drunk Flamingo, because I love to see what you guys come up with, what sorts of things inspire you guys. I just love them. Alright y'all, well that is pretty much it for this tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you enjoyed this tutorial or learned something new, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget to catch the next video coming up that was picked just for you. As always, if you're looking for more tips, tricks, and tutorials, be sure to check out my tutorial group, my Damn Fancy Tribe, or the Drunk Flamingo Glitter Group. All are linked in the description. Thanks for watching!